I'm a winner. That's my character. No way am I going to let someone else come along and beat me. That's impossible. I rarely smiled or felt happy after scoring. I always wanted more. I want to win. I want to compete. I want to show everyone that I'm the best. Communism made people grow up with discipline, with organization, and with a great sense of responsibility for each other. But life was very hard. We couldn't leave the country. At that time, when I was young, I wasn't thinking about communism. I went to school, I trained, and I prepared myself for the fight that lay ahead. Not many people know that before football I was an athlete because I was really fast. But one day I thought, in athletics you might be lucky to get 10,000 spectators, whilst in a football stadium there are tens of thousands. Like every kid, my dream was to play in the first division.
Hristo Stoichkov was born in 1966 in Bulgaria's second city of Plovdiv. Raised in a working-class family, football dominated his childhood.
Back around 1974, when Hristo was still a small boy, I was the goalkeeper for the local club, Hristo Plovdiv. I would always see him behind my goal, chasing after a ball. So one day I asked him, "Why aren't you at school?" And he replied, "The teacher's sick, so that's why I'm here." I'm not sure he was telling the truth, but it was immediately clear to me that he had a passion for the game.
I remember when they played, I always hung around the dressing rooms after the matches, because I liked the smell of the creams that the players used. I liked the way they smelled when they left the dressing room, with their hair wet, and people waiting for them to ask for an autograph or a photo. I thought to myself, maybe one day that could be me. Little by little, I understood the potential I had to develop as a footballer. I was young, and then at 16 I got the opportunity to play for Hristo in the third division, which at that time was very competitive.
Even when he was young, you could see that he wasn't an ordinary player. Straight away, his qualities stood him apart from the other players. More than anything, he had great speed and technique.
When he was a teenager, they used to call him the dog. The nickname tells you everything you need to know about the way he played football, especially if the dog sometimes became angry.
It didn't take long for those attributes to grab the attention of Bulgaria's more illustrious football clubs. After just 2 seasons at Hristo, Stoichkov signed for the Central Sports Club of the Army, better known as CSKA Sofia, then the most powerful and decorated club in the country.
When I arrived at CSKA, I met 24 players from the squad, all of whom had played for the national team. Imagine me, just a kid going there thinking, now what?
But his debut season in Sofia would be marred by controversy. The 1985 Bulgarian Cup final saw CSKA take on arch-rivals Levski Sofia in a foul-tempered contest. CSKA would go on to lift the trophy, but the Bulgarian Communist Party, incensed at what it saw as a breach of socialist morality, stripped them of the cup and banned 5 players for life, amongst them a 19-year-old Hristo Stoichkov.
What can I tell you? Communism is communism. They ruled whether you liked it or not. They didn't like CSKA, and they didn't like Levski. And we were the 2 biggest clubs at that time. There were a couple of players penalized for fighting, and I was banned for life, for a push.
CSKA won the cup final, but the next day the federation decided to punish Stoichkov. They ordered him back into the army and told him to finish his national service. It meant he had to move a long way from Sofia to Stara Zagora and was banned from all football-related activity.
So I was in the army again, literally waking up every day at 5 a.m, cleaning out the soldiers' barracks. Lots of things, crazy things. They wouldn't let me anywhere near a football. But luckily, after 10 months and 8 days in the football wilderness, I was finally allowed to resume my career.
Upon his return, Stoichkov helped CSKA to their first league title in 4 years. Very quickly, he gained a reputation as the most explosive player in the league. And his ruthless finishing led him to being nicknamed Kamata, the dagger.
The first thing you noticed about Hristo was his footballing ability. He was a footballer that read the game really well, and he had a great left foot. As for his right leg, well, he only had to press the pedal and he accelerated like a car.
I remember when I saw him for the first time. He was so powerful. He gave you the feeling that he had the ability to jump out of the stadium at any given moment.
What set him apart was his skill at scoring direct from free kicks. He would always stay behind after training and practice taking them.
Petr Zhekov, the greatest goal scorer in the history of CSKA, coached me on how to take free kicks. Every day before training, he would tell me over and over again how I should hit the ball, how I should shape my body, where I should aim for, and bit by bit, it sunk in.
At that time, the coach, Dimitar Penev, got the best players in Bulgaria to play at CSKA. We had a great team.
I was at CSKA during a golden era for the club, when we had some fantastic players. Up front, we had the strongest trio you could wish for, in Kostadinov, Penev and myself.
He had this huge desire to win the match at all costs. That was his character. And he had this natural instinct to not just score goals, but to score great goals.
Stoichkov would win 2 further league titles with CSKA and the Bulgarian Cup 3 times in a row. In 1989, he was crowned Bulgaria's Player of the Year, and the following season, he scored 38 league goals in just 30 appearances, winning him the European Golden Boot.
From 1985 to 1990, in those 5 years, I won everything there was to win in Bulgaria. I won the lot. I felt that something had to happen. There had been offers in previous years, but they never let me leave. Don't forget this was under the communists. They said, look, we're not going to let you go anywhere because you're the best. We want you here.
But in the winter of 1989, communism in Eastern Europe began to crumble. A more liberal regime assumed power in Bulgaria, allowing Stoichkov to leave CSKA. By then, he was already on the radar of one of the biggest clubs in European football, FC Barcelona.
I'd already spoken to Johan Cruyff and his right-hand man, Tony Bruins, about Stoichkov. They'd seen him several times. The year before Barca played CSKA in the Cup Winners' Cup, and that's when the decision was made to try and sign him.
I remember that European semi-final against CSKA. Cruyff told us the danger from this team was this guy Stoichkov, who he described as quick, mean-looking, powerful, and who had a great shot on him. Then in the first leg, as he always likes to remind me, he scored a cheeky chip over me on the counter-attack.
He was a big Cruyff fan. At his house, he had videos of Cruyff playing in the 70s. The fact that Johan was at the club was a huge attraction. He was delighted to be joining Barcelona.
Stoichkov signed for the Catalan Giants for 400 million pesetas, around €2.5 million. However, Barcelona were a team in transition, trying to forge a new identity under coach Johan Cruyff. They had won La Liga only once in the previous 17 years, and had always failed to claim Europe's ultimate prize, the European Cup.
Stoichkov himself describes Barcelona in 1990 as having had a complex, and he was right. They'd spent so long as a Catalan nation trying to get out from under the yoke of General Franco. They hadn't won trophies regularly. They'd been dominated by other clubs like Atletico, Real Madrid. They were a smaller club with smaller self-belief than they are now. He arrived in an era when the Camp Nou was ready to change. Yeah, he was an electric spark.
Aleixanco prova de penjar la pilota a l'olla. Ha saltat Xique Beristain a la mitja volta. Hristo, Stoichkov i gol! El llançament de Stoichkov. Stoichkov deia fora, Joan deia fora, Joan deia fora, Joan, Stoichkov, Stoichkov! Gol, 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 gol! Gol de Stoichkov, gol de Stoichkov! Amor que prova d'avançar també per a Stoichkov, que corre, continua, Stoichkov que xuta i gol, 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 gol! Gol de Hristo Stoichkov!
Stoichkov had ambition. He was a different kind of player. He wanted to lead the team, and as a goal scorer, he always left his mark. At that time, there were 3 foreigners in the team, but he was the one who won over the fans.
The only problem for me was the language. I didn't understand a thing. At Barcelona, Johan was talking the whole time. Everyone was talking. And when they asked me if I understood, I would nod my head, because in Bulgaria you nod your head to say no, and you shake your head to say yes.
His way of communicating was different, to say the least. He couldn't speak Spanish, so he raised his voice, and it seemed as if he was screaming.